All right, let's get right into it. If you've spent any time online, you've seen the headlines, right? The idea that the United States and China are basically on a collision course. But here's the thing. The story you usually hear, the one that's all about animosity and anger, that's not the whole story. Not even close. It's actually way, way bigger than that.
So you see this question pop up all over the place. It frames this massive, complex relationship like it's some kind of personal feud. But this isn't two people arguing online. We're talking about nations, and what drives them is something much deeper, much more fundamental than just emotion.
You see, the real story isn't about feelings. It's not about who likes who. It's a story about giants, about massive global forces competing for their place in a world that is changing faster than ever. To really understand what's going on, we have to look past all those angry headlines.
So let's just get this out of the way right now. This rivalry, it's not rooted in some simple cartoonish idea of hate. It is a cold, calculated, strategic struggle. It's about influence, it's about money, it's about technology, and it's about who gets to write the rules for the next century.
And that's it. That is the one word that sums it all up: power. What we're watching, what we're all living through, is a classic clash between the established superpower that literally built the modern world and the fastest rising power in all of human history, which now wants its own say. It all comes down to power. Okay, so to really get why this power struggle is so incredibly intense, you have to look back. You have to understand the history, the memories that drive each of these countries. Because believe me, their pasts are shaping every single move they make today.
For China, it all starts with what they call the century of humiliation. Think about it. From the mid-1800s to the mid-1900s, it was just one disaster after another. Foreign invasions, forced deals, territory carved up. That memory is burned into their national DNA. So when you hear officials in Beijing talk about national rejuvenation, know that it is not just some political slogan. It's a deeply felt promise to make China strong again, to make sure they are never again at the mercy of outside powers.
Now, let's flip the coin and look at the United States. America sees itself as the architect, the one who designed the whole system after World War II. It built the institutions, it protected the sea lanes, it set the rules of the game. So from Washington's point of view, China's rise isn't just friendly competition. It feels like a direct challenge to the entire world order that has kept America at the very top. It's a fear, a real fear of losing the crown. And this right here is the absolute core of the problem. China looks in the mirror and sees an ancient civilization just trying to stand up straight, reclaiming the respect it lost. But America looks at the exact same actions and sees an aggressive, expansionist power trying to tear up the rulebook. Each one is convinced it's just reacting defensively to the other's aggression. And that's what makes this whole thing so incredibly dangerous. Okay, so we've got the backstory, the psychology driving both sides. So where is this fight actually happening? This isn't just some abstract debate, It's a real struggle playing out on very real battlegrounds right now. The first big battlefield, the one that really kicked things off, was the trade war. Now, on the surface, it looked like it was all about jobs and tariffs. But what was really happening underneath was that both sides were admitting that the old era of friendly cooperation was over. Suddenly, money wasn't just money anymore. It had become a weapon, a tool to punish your rival.
But look, if the trade war was the opening battle, the tech war is the main event. And there's a really simple way to think about this. Chips are the new oil. For the last century, global power ran on oil. Well, for the 21st century, it runs on semiconductors. They are in everything: our phones, our cars, our AI, and, crucially, our most advanced military weapons. Whoever controls the chips controls the future. It's that simple.
And this is the point that you absolutely have to understand. The US realized that China's heavy reliance on its chip technology was a massive vulnerability, a lever it could pull to slow China down. And at the exact same time, China realized that without its own chips, it would never truly be a secure, independent superpower. So the fight isn't about selling more phones anymore. It's a bare-knuckle brawl for total technological supremacy. Which brings us to the single most dangerous place on the planet. Because all these tensions, the history, the economics, the technology, they all converge and focus on one tiny, incredibly important island. So you have to ask the question, right? With all this competition simmering, this new Cold War, where could it suddenly turn hot? What's the one place where a single mistake, a single miscalculation, could trigger an actual shooting war between two nuclear-armed powers?
The answer, as you've probably guessed, is Taiwan. For Beijing, bringing Taiwan under its control is not just a policy goal, it's a sacred mission tied to its national identity. For Washington, protecting Taiwan is about strategy, democracy, and credibility. And on this one issue, there is almost no room for compromise left.
So let's just quickly break down why this one island is so critical. First, geography. It sits smack in the middle of some of the busiest shipping lanes on Earth. Second, strategy. If China controlled it, its navy would suddenly have open access to the entire Pacific Ocean, completely changing the military map. And third, and this one is huge, technology. Taiwan makes the vast majority of the world's most advanced computer chips. For all these reasons, it is the ultimate flashpoint.
So, the billion-dollar question is, where does all of this go from here? Well, most experts see this whole rivalry shaking out in one of three possible ways, ranging from a tense but basically stable standoff to, well, a complete disaster.
Okay, so scenario 1 is basically a Cold War 2.0. The world splits into two camps, one led by America, one by China, with separate technologies, separate economies, the works. Scenario 2 is what you could call a managed rivalry. Yeah, they compete like crazy, but they talk, they set up guardrails, and they work really hard to avoid an actual war. And then there's scenario 3, the one everyone dreads, a major crisis, where an accident or miscalculation, probably over Taiwan, spirals out of control and leads to a direct conflict.
And that right there brings us to the single most important thing to remember in all of this. The biggest threat isn't that these two countries hate each other. The biggest, most terrifying danger is miscalculation. The risk is that in the heat of a crisis, one side completely misreads the other's intentions and feels like it has no choice but to act, pushing us all over the brink. Which leaves all of us with the defining geopolitical question of our lifetime. Can these two giants, the established power and the rising one, figure out a way to share the same planet? Can they compete without destroying each other and the rest of us along with them? Because the answer to that question is going to shape the world for every single one of us.